Hello, everyone. I'm Anne Maria Rogers, a branch chief in our Mobile Source Control Division. The branch is Compliance Assistance and Outreach. And I want to just thank you all for coming today and apologize too for the last meeting that we had scheduled. We just had some technical difficulties and it was taking too long for us to work through them. So appreciate your patience with us through that. I just want to give you a little bit of background for those who may be new. When the Advanced Clean Fleet regulation was adopted by CARB, we set up a few groups to help us with implementation of that regulation. We called them the Truck Regulation Implementation Groups, the TRIGs, and there were 4 of them. We had one that was focused on infrastructure. We had one focused on rule provisions. We had one on outreach, and we had one on border communities. Each of those groups had various stakeholders, lots of representation, and they were established so that they could help CARB with challenges for adopting and for implementing the Advanced Clean Fleet regulation. But when we decided to withdraw our request for a waiver for Advanced Clean Fleets for the high priority piece and drayage, we took a break from our TRIGs to try to figure out what the next steps were. So we now have launched a Drive Forward initiative, and Adil's going to go through kind of what that is. But we decided to re-engage with those groups. The infrastructure group has kept going, which has been great to still support all of the fleets moving to zero emission vehicles. We took a break on outreach and decided to combine it with the border communities. And this is the kickoff for that. And Adil will go through what we want to get out of this group, how we're going to organize ourselves, and we do have some topics that we'd like some feedback on. So this is really an opportunity for the panelists and others to weigh in on how we move forward with this group. So looking forward to a good conversation on that. And I was the co-host, I guess it was, for the first ones, but I'm going to transfer that responsibility over to Adil. He's going to be the CARB lead on this side with assistance from many staff, but a few of the key staff are going to be Larry Valero, who will help out on the border side, and Ariana Corpus is also helping. So you may see emails from her. So just wanted to give a little background. We invited the panelists that were part of the border group and the outreach to be the members this time, but that doesn't mean that we have to stick with that. We can certainly open up to others. But that's why we're here today. And I just, again, want to appreciate or say thank you to all of you for attending and looking forward to re-engaging with this group. It's all you, Adil.
Thanks so much, Anne-Marie. And for all the attendees here, to help streamline the conversation today, we're only going to allow panelists to speak. Panelists can unmute and mute themselves as needed. Attendees are encouraged to participate using the Zoom Q&A function to ask questions, provide comments, and suggest agenda items for future meetings. Before we start going through the agenda, I'd like to ask the panel to please introduce themselves, which organization you're with, what they do, and your role.
Are you going to
So,
call?
yeah, sure. We can start off with Cecile.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cecile Buncio. I work for the City of LA with the Bureau of Sanitation. I'm one of the division managers in our department. So our group is responsible for compliance with Advanced Clean Fleet with the state. Also, our group is a liaison to the vendor when it comes to purchasing our vehicles. Currently, we have about over like 1,000 vehicles that's subject to ACF. So mostly our vehicles are comprised of trash trucks from ASLs, rear loaders, medium duty trucks. Also our wastewater colleagues, they also have vacuum trucks, street sweeper. We have a few street sweepers, vacuum trucks. So it's a mixture of vehicles throughout sanitation. So thank you.
Thank you. And Cecile is one of our co-chairs, as is Chris White. Chris, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Chris White, years into video conferencing and still can't figure Zoom out. So say that up front. So Chris White, I work for Kittleson and Associates. We're transportation engineers. I have been working with fleets, mostly cities and counties and farms and ranchers and rural areas for 22 years now, helping them think about how to move to something that's not gasoline and diesel. And so I have worked with the CARB folks and with Cecile now for quite a while, and I'm excited to see this regulatory process moving forward.
Thank you so much. Happy to have you here. Christopher Roberts.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Roberts. I'm a senior customer solutions advisor for San Diego Gas and Electric. I'm engaged in large part with our border community and the binational fleets that reside there. Prior to my time at SDG&A, I also worked at a truck stop down in the region, which, also helped me get to where I'm at today as far as the relationships down there and help out customers with sort of ACF compliance. I'm glad to see that Alejandra Mieriteran is on the call here. She's the head of our Otay Chamber of Commerce, which helps out a lot of those border fleets as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. And Alejandra, would you mind introducing yourself?
So I don't think she's a
Oh,
panelist. I
excuse
just
me.
see she's on the attendee list, and she really
Oh,
spearheads a lot of work for our border community. So I'm just glad to see she's on the call here.
sure, sure. Yeah, I was just in touch with her earlier today. Angel Yin. Uh, Jesus Martinez Ramirez.
Hello, everyone. This is with Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. We're a government water utility located in Santa Clarita. If you know where Six Flags is located, that's our service area. We service approximately 275,000 people, and we have a fleet of around 300 vehicles and equipment. We've been engaged with ACF since it was first proposed, and we appreciate the work that CARB staff is doing, and we continue to engage on discussions on finding ways to be able to implement ACF in a way that doesn't impact operations. So we're happy to see that this group is going to continue to meet and find solutions to educate and inform fleets on their transition to zero emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yael Excel Cruz Garcia.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi everyone, nice to see you here. I'm Jair Cruz. I'm the Senior Strategic Partnership Lead at UC Alianza MS. It is UC Alianza is a system-wide initiative at the University of California. We're based in Riverside campus, but we do represent and we do work with all the 10 campus of the University of California. And we do have a binational working group on zero-emission vehicle utilization. It used to be a task force on electrification of transport. It evolved now into a binational working group where we convene people, key stakeholders for different sectors, such as academics, private sector, NGOs, government, both from Mexico and California, so we can identify a joint research agenda to push the zero-emission vehicle agenda in Mexico and California. So it's been great to see this is evolving and nice to be part of this project.
Thank you. Miguel Elizalde.
Yes. Hi, Miguel Elizalde, as you mentioned, Adil. I was part of the border group when I was president of AMPAC, which was in Mexico, the Truck and Engine Manufacturers Association. Now I'm a consultant in San Diego, California, and also starting a business of cross-border with a couple of trucks. And happy to be here.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. Sean Edgar.
Hi, all. Good afternoon. I'm Sean Edgar. I'm the director of Clean Fleets based in Sacramento. This is my 26th year working on CARB's diesel risk reduction plan. Initially, our firm represented waste haulers, construction industry, moving and storage, and other associations. That has grown into regulatory advice consulting for Fortune 500 companies to major cities from Orange County all the way up through Central Valley irrigation districts and sanitary districts throughout the state. So happy to really focus today's dialogue, borrowing from the great infrastructure workshop that was last Monday, talk about how we can collectively get information out on clean technologies that reduce climate change emissions, and looking forward to having more dialogue with the group on that. Thank you.
Sure, good to see you, Sean. And Rick Halprin.
Yeah, Rick Halprin from Vesco Veteran Energy Services Company and NESCO Native Energy Services Company. We were introduced to this program by Larry Riera, and we have been working with tribes and at the border in terms of solving the chicken and egg problem between EV charger infrastructure and medium heavy duty trucks to get them deployed. So glad to be part of this.
Great, thank you so much. And Larry and Ariana, would you be able to introduce yourselves as well?
Yeah, hi, my name's Ariana Porpoise. I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB, and I'm gonna be helping with setting these meetings up. So you'll probably see some emails from me.
Thanks so much. And Andrea and Melissa, we'll go ahead and save your introductions for when we move to the Clean Fleet Connect portion of the meeting. So let me pull up the agenda briefly before I give a presentation on Drive Forward. Sorry, So today we'll start off with an overview of the Drive Forward initiative. We'll discuss the purpose of the Drive Forward Truck Forum outreach meetings, lessons learned from past ACF TRIG meetings, the panel composition, who we have now and how it can grow. And then we'll have introduce a segment for panelist feedback regarding Drive Forward events and materials that we've had released thus far, and also discuss a program, Clean Fleet Connect, that we're looking to launch later this year. So what is the Drive Forward initiative? For those of you that are unaware, I'll go ahead and start out with some history before I get into what the program or initiative actually entails. So how we got here: despite federal attacks on California's environmental authority, California is not backing down from its goals to protect public health. Last year, Governor Newsom signed an executive order reaffirming California's commitment to deploy zero-emission vehicle technologies to improve air quality, especially in communities disproportionately impacted by pollution. This was followed by a series of listening sessions called ZEV Forward, which brought together expertise from the public, industry, and multiple state agencies. These sessions provided an opportunity to exchange ideas, identify challenges, and explore ways to advance clean vehicle technology together. The ZEV Forward effort informed the recommendation report that was submitted to Governor Newsom and was published on CARB ZEV Forward webpage on August 19th of 2025. Building on the foundation established through these listening sessions and in response to the executive order, CARB has launched the Drive Forward initiative. The Drive Forward initiative aims to reduce harmful air pollution and improve public health through the development of light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicle and fleet regulations and incentive programs. Outreach, market support, education, and complementary programs and policies such as California Clean Construction and Clean Fleet Connect, which we will discuss in more detail later during this meeting, are also important parts of the Drive Forward initiative. As we consider new regulations and programs, we want to hear from you and from those across all sectors, especially those living in under-resourced communities and from fleets of all sizes. It is important that we work together to develop programs that support clean transportation for all. Now I want to talk about why it's so important that we continue to push new regulations and programs to reduce pollution. The first reported incidents of smog occurred in the 1940s in Los Angeles, with visibility cut to 3 blocks and people suffering from burning eyes and lungs and nausea. Since the first vehicle pollution standards were adopted in the 1950s, California has made tremendous progress that has led to continued improvements in air quality. Even as the population and the number of vehicles have increased, millions of Californians still breathe unhealthy air every single day. This exposure contributes to higher rates of asthma, heart disease, and even premature death. California has clear obligation to continue reducing emissions. Under state and federal clean air laws, we are required to protect public health and meet air quality standards, and under our climate commitments, we must reduce greenhouse gas and emissions to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Any delay in action will only make the problem more costly and more difficult to solve. So the question isn't whether we need to act, it's where action will make the biggest difference. When we look at the data, one sector clearly stands out. We know trucking is essential to California's economy. Trucks move nearly all the goods that Californians rely on every day, from food and medical supplies to construction materials and consumer products, and they support millions of jobs across the state. Although trucks make up only 7% of vehicles on California roads, they are responsible for 20% of transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions and nearly half of all transportation-related NOx emissions. NOx, or nitrogen oxides, are harmful air pollutants that come from burning fuel in engines. NOx contributes to smog and unhealthy air and can trigger asthma, heart problems, and other respiratory illnesses, especially for children, seniors, and people who live in or work near busy roads, ports, or freight corridors. This chart illustrates the disproportionate impact of trucks on our air quality and climate goals. As you can see, their emissions are far out of proportion to their numbers, which is why reducing truck pollution is one of the most effective ways to protect public health while ensuring a strong, reliable freight system for California's economy. Staff are working on potential new rules and incentive programs for heavy and light-duty vehicles. This slide outlines the core principles that will guide our heavy-duty rule development. As staff shape this approach, they are focused on delivering real health benefits where they are needed most, particularly in communities that have long borne the brunt of heavy pollution. The heavy-duty team is particularly interested in incentivizing early action by manufacturers, given the urgency to make up for the lost emission reductions because of the illegal federal actions. At this time, staff knows that progress must be achievable. That means designing strategies that go beyond the status quo but are grounded in what's actually feasible, both from a technology standpoint and in terms of cost. Staff also want to make compliance as straightforward as possible. If the rules are too complex or burdensome, they risk slowing down progress. Simplicity helps everyone, from fleet operators to enforcement staff. Fairness is another key consideration. A level playing field means ensuring that no one, whether a small business or large operator, is unfairly advantaged or disadvantaged. That's essential for both equity and broad support. And finally, staff are mindful of the ripple effects and want to avoid unintended consequences. This slide outlines the scope of any potential heavy-duty rulemaking effort. Staff are exploring a focus on vehicles over 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight rating operating in California, ranging from delivery vans all the way up to big rigs. These potential new regulations could affect manufacturers, owners, and operators, and entities that hire truck services. More workshops and listening sessions are planned throughout the year, so there's still a lot of time for input. As we develop new standards and strategies strategies and programs to reduce emissions, we want to get input from those impacted most. That means building on what we've already done, but doing more and trying new approaches to reach fleets, communities, and partners. Our outreach efforts have begun with educating our different audiences and interested parties on possible rulemakings and how to provide input. We want people to understand what's coming, the timeline, and the ways they can get involved early in the process. As we move forward, we'll continue gathering input that will help the proposal itself, ensuring the regulations and incentive programs are practical, effective, and equitable. We plan to partner with organizations and agencies across the state to reach more audiences and strengthen connections with people and fleets these rules and programs would affect most. By partnering with local organizations and community work groups, we can ensure their perspectives and lived experiences help guide this work. Our outreach will use multiple channels, including the Drive Forward web portal, fact sheets, events and meetings, videos, and social media, along with direct conversations and listening sessions with fleets and other groups. We plan to create new mechanisms to gather meaningful feedback so communities and industry partners can help shape regulations in a more transparent and collaborative way. And throughout the process, we're committed to inclusive engagement and meeting communities and fleets where they are. Here's a quick look at our outreach schedule for Drive Forward. If you click on the QR code, you'll be taken to a link where you can find a schedule with our upcoming meetings. We're starting to move into the deeper engagement phase with more workshops and engagement opportunities coming up in 2026. The next meetings we have scheduled will cover our incentive programs, with one focused on light duty on March 24th and another focused on heavy duty the day after on March 25th. Here's a QR code that you can use to access our Drive Forward website where you can subscribe and learn more about upcoming meetings and events. You can be emailed directly regarding programs for heavy duty vehicle standards and strategies, our light duty vehicle program, and our incentive programs. In closing, your voice really matters, and we want to hear from you, and we really appreciate everyone getting involved and providing as much input as possible. So before we get to the agenda, were there any comments or questions about the presentation? Sure. So just switching over screens right now. So now I'd like to talk a bit about the purpose of Drive Forward. So before we start, I just want to reiterate that we won't be using these groups to shape concepts for regulations or incentive programs, but rather the outreach around the Drive Forward initiative as a whole. A major goal will be to develop clear messaging, outreach strategies, and tools to help fleet owners, stakeholders, and the general public better understand and participate in the Drive Forward initiative. Feedback from these meetings will help CARB inform how we will be conducting outreach for Drive Forward. And so before I open it up, I guess I'd want the panelists to consider two different things. First, if the goal I just stated needs to be expanded and how. And then second, what goals do you and the sectors you represent have from participating in these meetings?
Yeah, I'd be happy to that lead off, Sean Edgar. So I'm borrowing from the really what I thought was a successful last Monday, the infrastructure. Somewhere along the way, you know, integrating or sharing the work product of some of those workshop assignments would be ideal. So as an example, last Monday, some of the panelists that are also present on today's call were able to, share some key information particular to hydrogen strategies, and there was a little bit of a focused discussion about refuse industry. And so I think it was agreed that that experiment that the refuse industry, many of whom are on the call today, have had, was a valuable follow-up as maybe a beachhead type of segment to talk in more detail. So I guess if I were to make an appeal to this group at some stage as we get through, I would appeal to have a call at least every 3 to 4 weeks, and then be able to share the notes of those calls, and then be able to talk about maybe a more rational, integrated discussion to try to direct outreach towards segments where we're having some success. So as an example, last Monday, one success story was about hydrogen use in the refuse sector and some of the advances in production technology, especially going down the pathway to support Senate Bill 1383, right? Making biogas out of organic waste that is banned from landfilling. So, which is, great environmental benefit. So that was one really good thing I thought that came out of last Monday's discussion about the infrastructure side. And then, also we heard from some of the large cities, city of LA in particular, that, experiencing some challenge on the electrical infrastructure side, while it seems like some of the hydrogen infrastructure is improving. So sharing information along there. And I think ultimately the messaging that we create together kind of needs to go back to, the board's program priorities that were just talked about at the February 25th meeting, really have to focus on, science-based strategies. So, things that involve removing climate change emissions and toxic air contaminants, right? We kind of want to do all of those things. So some of the strategies, what we used to call near zero that involve biogas, some of those are pretty good for science-based and removing toxic air contaminants and lowering climate change emissions. We also really need to focus on sharing the success stories for fleets that are using them cost effectively, right? So we heard, last week, once again, there was a little bit of discussion about, some of the technology was super expensive and didn't maybe meet the needs as well. Whereas we heard also some of the technologies on the, like hydrogen production, they're headed in a downward trend on the production side. Whereas, some electricity looks like it's moving up. So there was a cost effectiveness conversation. And then really, with the theme of government being affordability, we ultimately need to focus on those near-term strategies that reduce the most emissions at the least amount of pain for the customer, because we know, customers are suffering from affordability challenges right now, right? And nobody wants to pay a $200 a month garbage bill, so we kind of have to, or electricity bill, or whatever it is. So we need to be sensitive about implementing the most cost-effective technologies. And then I guess finally, two things. Finally, we have advances in technology on the near zero engine side. So I know we have folks from Cummins on here that have talked about their X15N engine, which is kind of new for heavy duty trucking. That seems like Tesla's emerging, some good news near term, it sounds like, on their battery electric tractor that's going to be coming out. And it sounds like there were other players that talked about truck technology involving hydrogen fuel cell. So it seems like on the heavy duty sector, we have a little bit of improvements, out there on the cusp, if you will. So that was good to hear about all that. And so we need to understand it and then digest it, and then put it in case studies that people can make action on. And then finally, the community benefits part, right? So we want to make sure that what we do focuses on a sector that's going to most benefit communities, right? So things like, trash trucks or other things that operate in every community, or delivery trucks, we want to use those type of examples. So just to recap, science-based technology, have a good, robust discussion about that, and pick the best of that. Affordability, right? Pick cost-effective technologies. And then finally, what we share, the case studies of who's doing it successfully, make sure that it gets implemented to supply benefits where they're needed in communities throughout the state. So that's maybe for openers what I would share with you all. And I guess lastly, we had some great providers of essential public service. I know wastewater agencies, public agencies who support the public with essential public services. They had a lot to say last week on their capability to invest and make some of the cleaner technologies and pathway to hydrogen and other things. So we can't ignore that public agencies are kind of stretched right now, but also making monumental investments in things like 1383 to hopefully come around and deliver some cleaner fuel that is suitable to be used in heavy duty trucking. So there's just a few thoughts to share at the get-go.
Yeah, Sean, I really agree with you. I think when we're delivering these messages, we need to include information on affordability, effectiveness, advancements in technology, and also the benefits that communities that are already seeing from some of these advanced technologies create. I see a hand up from Yayo.
Yeah, thank you. I guess you already considered this, but I guess it's quite important to take into account the binational aspect of fleet. A fleet regulation in California will have a major impact in Mexico's fleet owners and operators. So this is something we have been discussing for the past years within our groups and the financial working group now. And it's moving forward. And as Sam just mentioned, we're trying to do science-based recommendations about the infrastructure, regulation, policy, supply chain. So from Alianza, we are open to share with you this information with other. We have funded a couple of research in conducted by the ITS UC Davis, the Institute for Transformation Studies at UC Davis, and also at the CSER at UC Riverside. So our goal is to share this info. You people who have to take decisions and implement regulations have the best info. So you just let us know and we can share with you all of this.
Thank you so much for that comment. Definitely important considerations to keep in mind. Jesus, I see your hand up.
You. I think there's still kind of three areas that I think are going to be, really important, I think, for public fleets. I think the first one is still communication. So I'm hoping that there could be more targeted outreach to public fleets, before I think I saw on the timeline before 2027. I think there's still some confusion, with elected officials and maybe some execs. All they see is, that California had to, uh, you know, uh, withdraw its waiver to the EPA. So they might still think that these rules are not applicable to state and local governments. So there's a significant educational component that needs to happen there and needs to be targeted. The second one has to do with affordability. I think there definitely needs to be more outreach as far as the various programs available through CARB and also through the utilities for fleets to be able to take advantage of those and try to offset some of those significant costs for infrastructure and vehicles. And the last thing is really how to stay up to date with and involved with regulatory changes so that fleets can be more involved with providing feedback to CARB, not just on the regulatory language, but what's working on the exemption process. So I think maybe having more workshops about the different exemptions that are available and maybe providing different examples for fleets that have been successful in getting some exemptions so that fleets can know, what is that process like, how they can submit their waivers and how they can have more interactions with CARB staff as they submit their exemptions. So I'm hoping this group can, work on some of that as well. Thank you.
Jesus, thank you for the comments. For advanced clean fleets, we're gonna continue our ACF TRIG meetings for rule provisions, and we'll be continuing those. For these specific drive forward ones, we're gonna be focusing more on focusing on the drive forward initiative itself. But I'd be happy to talk to you personally as well about ideas on how we can increase outreach for ACF. As you mentioned, there are some changes coming, so looking forward to those conversations. Okay. So moving forward to lessons learned from past ACF meetings. I have an interesting viewpoint, I think. I joined this team about a year and a half ago as the ACF meetings were actually wrapping up, so I didn't have a chance to participate in those. But I did start reviewing the materials more closely that we have on our website and the different outreach strategies that we implemented. And it was kind of interesting to see as I went back and watched the videos how the discussions that occurred as part of the ACF PRIG outreach meetings impacted what we had done. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Chris had a hand up.
I'm going to wait because what I'm going to say is going to bridge B and C. So go ahead,
Oh,
finish.
great. Yeah, I was just going to mention that. Yeah, it was interesting to see how the development process in these meetings went and impacted our implementation. So, yeah, Chris, I'd love to hear from you.
Kind of the same thing. I'm actually interested in you because you participated at all the meetings in a compressed timeline, whereas the rest of us, it was months between meetings. So, but I would say, having been part of the Drive For or the Advanced Clean Fleet outreach meetings, what we learned and what we can take forward, and the purpose of this forum is, I think we really recognized how different fleets are, and the idea, we really tried to squeeze both municipal fleets, and then as we've talked about the water fleets and the trash fleets and the other ones that are kind of special purpose tough ones, in with drayage trucks. And they really needed to be on their own paths with different ways to think. And so one thing that I would suggest on these outreach team meetings is maybe we do this in groups and we talk about municipal fleets or state and local government fleets, and then things that are not everything else. So I would say that. The other thing that I think we learned was really beneficial is to have CARB give us guardrails and to be able to say up front to us, we already do that for Cal Fleet Advisor. We're not going to duplicate it here. Or that's already being done, kind of Adil, what you just did. We're already doing that with advanced clean fleets. We're not going to duplicate that here. So to give us direction and guardrails is really important. And the other thing is to really tell us what you need from us. Do you want specific ideas? Do you want brainstorming? Do you want us to go out and knock on doors and talk to people? And then the third thing I would say is we heard from folks already who are enthusiastic and passionate about doing this, and the science and the climate community benefits and all the things that I feel strongly about as well. We have as many people who feel the opposite way about this. And so our outreach, or what we do in these meetings, really have to recognize that the people who attend are being affected by this or impacted by this. Some of them are all for it, and some of them are dead set against it. And our outreach has to take in both of those viewpoints.
Sure. Yeah, I can see the importance of that, and we will be providing more guardrails and I guess specific requests from the panelists moving forward in terms of what's needed. I think for this initial meeting, we wanted to keep it kind of open so we can get more feedback on actually how best to proceed. But really appreciate that comment. So, in terms of other threads that I had seen in some of the meetings, a common thread that I had seen was the importance of using plain language, especially when discussing nuanced concepts. I think that'll carry forward here as well. Like you mentioned, Chris, there's a wide variety of groups and that we're reaching out to. And for the Drive Forward initiative, it'll be even larger than what we did for ACF. ACF was focused on fleets, like you said, both state and local government fleets and private fleets. This we're actually hoping to get input from community groups, fleets themselves, companies, age manufacturers, pretty much everyone that could be impacted by the upcoming regulations and incentive programs we have. So I can see how focusing on different sectors or segments at a time could be helpful as well. Um, and I think oh, yes, Cecile.
Oh, Adil, I just wanted to make a comment when it comes to like, because I'm from a local state group, right? So we are subject to ACF. As you're buying all these electric vehicles, I've noticed that the OEMs do not have a standard when it comes to basically identifying the critical parts of the trucks. They don't follow any ISOs as compared to Europe and in China, in other parts of Asia. In the US, we don't. Some of those vendors, we have to like basically show them like properly labeling where the battery is, where to turn off the emergency button in case that there's a fire. I think because you want to promote the use of electric vehicles for heavy duty and medium duty, I think the buyers, I mean, a lot of us in this meeting should be aware of it, and that should be the OEMs need to be trained. I think we should have like those meetings as part of an outreach, so that when they're buying their trucks, because it has to do it's in connection with the safety. So that's one of my like suggestion that it should be part of public outreach as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's something we can cover when we focus on some of the heavy duty topics. Another common thread that I saw, this one I remember from the border meetings, was the importance of providing background information on um, the different types of technologies that we may be discussing. Um, and also talking about how what is available on the market today. If we are going to be discussing ZEVs, sure, they've been around for years, but we're seeing that this current generation is more versatile and can work with more applications and more readily or more easily adoptable by fleets. Um, I think that kind of information could be helpful to include as part of our materials for Drive Forward as well, just so people can see what is actually capable there. Were there any other comments on lessons learned from ACF, what worked, what didn't work? From, excuse me, the ACF Creek meetings? Sure. Then let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, panel composition. Who do we want on the panel for the Drive Forward Truck Forum outreach meetings? And are there any gaps in representation? So the panelists that are here, of course, they were part of our outreach meetings in the past and also part of our border meetings. But like I said earlier, the ACF outreach and border meetings, a lot of it was focused on ACF. And we'll want to have a broader group here, one that represents community groups, different types of stakeholders, fleets. So looking here, is there anyone specifically when, we think about the panelists here, that we could add that would be helpful? one I had in mind was possibly a chamber of commerce, or if there's any that you are aware of that are particularly focused on ZEVs. I saw that the Chula Vista Chamber of Commerce, they work with their local utility, San Diego Gas and Electric, to help share information about ZEV programs. I think that could be a good addition. I wanted to get the panelists' thoughts on that.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure, of course.
For the community groups, and I don't disagree with including them, what type of input or feedback do you expect them to have that is specific about moving trucks to cleaner fuels? What do you want them to do or say as a result of being part of this group?
Oh, that's a great question. I think particularly I would be interested to see how they're impacted. I see what you're saying. Maybe they might not be up to date on what's technically feasible, or what trucks are on the market. But I think we'd like to learn about their concerns and the specific issues that they're facing, and then also what they would like to see if there's certain areas in their communities that are significantly impacted, and specifically how they're negatively impacted. That would allow us to see, what we could do. Um, and then hopefully, there may be, not hopefully, but if there are other communities that are facing the same challenges, we'd be able to learn from lessons and apply those there as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at when we say we're looking for input from community members. That's not all we, oh, sure.
I'm wondering if the right group, not to discount chambers of commerce or community groups because they are important, but the group that's probably missing are the small local transportation planning organizations that are, for the most part right now, already looking at how to realign their truck routes and are not considering what might happen if trucks are a little heavier, if trucks need to stop and charge somewhere. The other thing that we might want to get involved or at least think about is the folks that are involved with Caltrans and unauthorized truck parking and everything that they're doing there, because they also have a lot of insight into how to reach out to folks that are doing this. So
Yeah, that would be.
we're working with a very dense urban area that has a break bulk port. So not Port Oakland, not Port of LA. It's where they load bags of cement and farm products or have cars come off. And they're trying to restrict we're redesigning their entire flow of freight traffic and this will absolutely impact what they're doing with that freight traffic. And so I think they would have really good insight.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just taking notes. I think that they would be excellent members. I'll definitely follow up with you later for specific groups that you have in mind, and then look for some more from CARB side as well. Jesus, I see your hand up.
I think a couple might be maybe getting one or two of the OEM manufacturers, again, just to be able to outreach to the dealer networks, to kind of stay up to date with, their offerings or to keep us posted on events like the one that's coming up in San Diego, the Ride and Drives. I think also maybe someone from telematics, that side. There's a lot of tools that are coming out that can really help fleets plan for their vehicles to transition as well as for infrastructure. I know Geotab, for example, has a lot of tools there for battery health as well as for planning. So that could definitely help as well. And then I think maybe some of the charger folks. Again, just to be able to outreach to kind of help inform folks on what's available. And then lastly would be folks that are involved with grants like Carl Moyer or any other state funded projects, right? So that again, there can be more emphasis on that, on what's available, and they can communicate that to the folks here on what programs are available and timelines and best practices. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. And I think those would be great additions. Specifically for the telematics providers, though, I guess, the what we're trying to do here is accomplish or develop outreach strategies for the Drive Forward initiative. And I'm trying to think, of course, telematics providers, they provide a great service in terms of helping fleets move towards zero emission vehicles. I'm trying to see how we could include them as part of these meetings as well and what role they would have to play. I, I believe we can bring them in to provide background information as part of the Drive Forward initiative, just background on technology and what's happening and what fleets are doing to transition to zero emission vehicles. Is that what you had in mind there?
Yeah, definitely. I think they do, I think something called Run on Less. So they share, what the freight side is doing, what are things that they're finding with these trucks, what are they seeing as far as battery degradation, right? So it kind of helps provide some data to kind of help address some of the sometimes misconceptions about, zero emissions technology. But also so that they can take that information back and reach out to their customers as well.
Sure, sure. Another group that I had in mind was community steering groups. Those are groups working with air districts to develop community emission reduction plans for their specific communities. I think they have a lot of good insight and ideas on a local level about, what I guess what's going on, what's being developed, and what the needs are of their communities. Just wanted to see if anyone had thoughts on them joining as well.
I think, it's a good idea for the community steering committee to be included. That said, I feel they are more engaged with sort of more residential type issues and don't always have a pulse on what's going on in the commercial sector. Um, so for example, in San Diego, like the Otay Chamber would be the primary representative for our commercial sector, the very, vibrant, competitive, medium duty, heavy duty transportation sector down in Otay. And the other area would probably be the San Diego port. And I don't necessarily feel that the steering committees would properly represent those two areas.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, if we were to invite one, we'd want to choose one that I guess is more focused on these issues. We'll definitely do more research on that if we do have them join our group. Any other comments or recommendations on how we can expand this group? If not, I can. Oh, I see in the chat, can a car. I think that would be helpful to get that point of view. Um, and researchers as well that have ongoing projects related to this topic. Okay, and then the last agenda item that we have is panelist feedback. And I kind of wanted to open this up to see if any of the panelists have attended the recent workshops and what feedback they had. I know we talked about the infrastructure panel a little, the infrastructure meeting a little bit, but I wanted to talk more about the actual Drive Forward workshops that we held. Um, did anyone get a chance to review those materials or go to or attend any of the webinars or events in person, such as our one-stop events where we gave some information on what we had coming up? It's still fairly early in the process, so we'll be having a lot more workshops in the future, and we'll definitely keep the group posted on uh, when they occur, and so that they can participate. We'll also be sharing a little bit more information moving forward. Like I said, this meeting was kind of just to get general ideas out about how we should conduct outreach moving forward. The other ones will be a little more focused and a little bit more specific.
Jill, I
And
know there's a one-stop event coming up in San Diego,
mhm,
pretty quick, right? How, do you know how many are planned throughout the rest of this year or the next couple of months?
that one in San Diego will be our ride and drives. We typically have two of those a year, so this will be the first, and then we'll have another later in the year.
Okay.
We do have additional one stops. Those are more ride and drives, of course, is or where we have a track set up and we have vehicles on that are showcased for fleets to come and test drive. We also have presentations on our different programs, and this time we'll have third-party presentations as well from different vendors, sharing knowledge about zero-emission vehicles. So those happen about twice a year. Then we also have our one-stop events, which are more focused on education about our incentive programs and our regulations. And those are more fleet focused. Come here, you can learn about your requirements. And we have almost quarterly, I guess. There's several every year.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it works out right, it would be nice to, or an idea is as you put all of the trigs together for this, is to be able to have the trig panelists get together in person at the one-stop events.
Actually, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think having a live kind of town hall meeting would be great. That's something we have
Oh,
kind
I
of
was thinking like beers. Let's get together and
Oh,
have
okay.
beers, y'all. So, but live town hall's okay too. No, just an opportunity to say we're going to be here. CARB's going to be here. If the panelists, trig panelists are going to be here, let's get together at this place at this time. Oh, look at all these thumbs up for beers.
Yep.
Sure. And I'm also getting a message that we'll have a one stop in San Diego, probably around late June.
You
So
and I
yeah,
can
and
talk
it
about that offline too, because gosh, I know that CARB is not allowed to buy food and bev, and only you had private consultants on this phone that could buy things like that. So
sure.
we can talk later.
Sure. So I guess moving forward, I guess I would want to just finish up the last topic there and talk about any other general feedback that you had regarding carbs outreach that we've done recently? Maybe not necessarily related to those Drive Forward meetings, but is there anything that you saw that resonated, or is there something that we can do to help raise awareness of these Drive Forward workshops? Even general outreach strategies to raise awareness for these Drive Forward workshops.
So beyond
Something.
the one stops, right? I mean, we're talking about the reg
Yeah,
workshops that are happening to discuss concepts. There's a incentives workshop next week, light duty on the 24th and heavy duty on the 25th. So
exactly.
yeah, and there were previous workshops on incentive programs and regulations. So yeah, any feedback on what's happened so far would be great.
You know, two of the things that we did with the ACF outreach trig that I thought were really, really effective were putting a PDF out that was a calendar of everything that was upcoming. And just having it so that I personally could print it out and have it and know when things were scheduled more than just the next workshop. That was super helpful. It was also really helpful to have it on the ZEV truck stop site in addition to the CARB website, because y'all may not know this, but sometimes it's hard to find things on your website. The second thing is we did for like 2 months, when I say we, I mean you, a really pithy campaign on LinkedIn that was like a weekly fun fact, or I can't remember exactly what we did, but I thought that was great. And a lot of the panel members shared those, and they really got a lot of traction.
It was our Spring Forward campaign.
Yeah, we should do that.
But-
And again, when I say we, I mean you.
Sure. And we are working on a new website specific for Drive Forward. It's live right now, but we're in the process of making updates, and we'd love to hear more about your thoughts, like on a calendar or a schedule that we can put up there.
So,
Uh,
so the other little thing that I would suggest too is for everybody who doesn't know this, the Clean Cities programs just got reauthorized. So they have been in hiatus for months, and they are all back in business on April 15th. So leverage our Clean Cities directors. There's actually now a Clean Cities director for the state of Nevada, and they should be included as well because those folks operate trucks on our side of the line. So we should be including them and stuff about participating in these workshops too. So
Sure, yeah, definitely. They've been great partners. They're helping out with our upcoming Ride and Drive event and help us put on webinars. Definitely looking forward to working with them more.
there was a lot of doubt until a few weeks ago if they were still going to be around, but thank heavens, back in business.
So, before we move to the Clean Fleet Connect portion of the meeting today, I just wanted to ask if there were any closing thoughts or final thoughts from the panelists on Drive Forward in general and those outreach strategies.
Yeah, I would say as far as the panel composition's concerned, I'm sure the invites went out, but I don't see anyone from SE or PG&E here for the panelists. I think it's important to have, a representative from Clean Transportation from the different IOUs for two reasons. The first is when the utilities were preparing for ACF and getting communication out to our ratepayers, we had experience in knowing where these hotspots were within our service territories that needed to have infrastructure upgraded. We discovered then that a lot of the infrastructure that we needed was not going to be ready for the ACF checkpoints, if you will. So in order to avoid a situation like that in the future, I think it'd be good to have the different utilities here so that we can proactively build out infrastructure for those hotspots. Say, for example, a new federal administration comes in, the APA waiver gets submitted, and we're not put into a position where we need to ask for extensions from CARB for the different, commercial fleets that need to upgrade their trucks from diesel to electric.
Sure, sure. That's a great point. That's something that we could definitely consider. Okay, great. Now, we're going to be talking about our Clean Fleet Connect program a little bit. Andrea and Melissa, if you could please introduce yourselves, and I'll pull up the slides for Clean Fleet Connect.
Sure, I can start us off. I'm Andrea Morgan. I'm a manager here at CARB in the Compliance Assistance and Outreach branch. My team works on a number of different measures to really try and make it easier for fleets to adopt zero emission vehicles. And one of those things that we've been working on is this Clean Fleet Connect tool. And I'll hand it over to Melissa to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Muser. It's good to be here. I work on Andrea's team. So my slice in this a lot of times revolves around our media campaign for several of our regulations, and then Clean Fleet Connect messaging. Also work with ports quite a bit on outreach. So and I'll hand it back to Andrea.
Great. And I know Adele is pulling up slides here, but while he's doing that, I can say broadly, the Clean Fleet Connect is really designed to be a web tool, and it's still in the development process. So we want to get some early feedback today from folks, especially on messaging. But if you could go ahead and move on to the next slide. Okay, yeah. So Clean Fleet Connect is a web tool. It's still under development. And really the goal here is to highlight fleets that have adopted zero emission vehicles and help connect organizations, including businesses who have sustainability goals, with the fleets that can help them meet those goals. So Clean Fleet Connect would be open to on-road, medium and heavy duty fleets, and participation in this tool would be entirely voluntary. Next slide. So before we go into any of the details about the tool, I want to share pretty high level what this tool would and wouldn't do in just some general terms. So as I mentioned earlier, the tool will highlight fleets that are taking early actions toward adopting zero emission vehicles. And it will increase the visibility of those zero emission fleets to hiring and procurement entities and help support public and private sector organizations in meeting their climate and sustainability goals. The tool would not be creating any sort of new regulatory requirements, affecting compliance, or otherwise be used for regulatory purposes. And it does not guarantee additional business or financial benefits, and it would not be endorsing or recommending any specific businesses. So in general terms, the tool is really meant to provide information and visibility, not regulate or certify fleets. Next slide. So Clean Fleet Connect would be posted on a CARB web page, and users would be able to access a public and easy to navigate list of participating fleets. The page would include regular data updates along with a search and filter option to help users find fleets based on their need. So for each participating fleet, the tool would display key information such as a contact person, an email, or web page, the company or agency name, the types of vehicles in the fleets, the vehicle class range, and the percentage of ZEVs within those vehicle classes. So I think we can move on to the next slide. All right. So we're still considering exactly what the threshold would be for a fleet to be highlighted on Clean Fleet Connect, but we're looking at things like operating at least one zero emission vehicle in California, at least 5% of the California fleet being zero emission, or the number of zero emission vehicles in the California fleet meeting or exceeding a set of ZEV milestones. So these milestones would define a target number of zero emission vehicles for a fleet based on its size and vehicle type. And the milestones would start out higher for lighter duty vehicles than the heaviest duty classes, where we know it has been a little bit more challenging for folks to adopt zero emission vehicles. And the percentages would increase over time, eventually leading to fully zero emission fleets. Additionally, for folks to participate, we would be looking at things like fleet owners having to maintain up-to-date reporting in our truckers reporting database of their fleet. And this would really help us to identify fleets that are actively adopting zero emission vehicles, and some of these have already been used in similar types of voluntary recognition. All right, next slide. Okay, so before I go over contact information, briefly want to mention the timeline for this tool. So since last October, we've been gathering feedback on the tool from fleets, hiring entities, and a number of key stakeholders. In late 2026, we're aiming to publish the tool and begin some pretty specific outreach to fleets in order to start getting fleets to sign up. And after we have a number of fleets signed up, we'd really be expanding our outreach to hiring entities, so folks like BCOs and brokers and shippers, to raise awareness of the tool and participating fleets. So I know that was a lot of information, and it was really meant to be a kind of quick primer on the basics of what we're trying to achieve with the tool. But before I turn it over to Melissa to talk about kind of what we're thinking in terms of messaging, and we're hoping to get some feedback today on those messaging techniques and strategies. But also would be more than happy to chat one-on-one with anyone who would like to learn more about the tool or provide feedback on the tool itself, or brainstorm how we can make this more useful for fleets. So if you have any general questions or feedback on Clean Fleet Connect, please feel free to either reach out to our Dev Truck Stop email address on the slide or the lead staff, Karina Kohler. And with that, I think we can turn it over to Melissa.
Okay, great. So while Adele is getting our messaging slides up, as Andrea said, we're really just trying to get some early messaging together. We've put together our ideas of how what we believe motivators would be for fleets and hiring entities to use this tool. But we wanted to put it out to you as well, and use this really as a brainstorming time where there's still a lot of room for making tweaks. And we've run it by a couple other groups as well, and have tried to incorporate what we can. And really what we're looking for today, it can be a little tricky to do this in a big meeting, but please, if you could let us know in the chat, or just raise your hand if you have specific thoughts. Both is great. We are really looking for, did we capture the motivators right? Are we clear on what the tool is? Are we using terms that resonate well with these audiences? And then if you can, just let us know when you provide feedback, what audience you're speaking of, and then which message number you're referring to. And so I'll go through those in a minute. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so these are primary messaging options that we've come up with when talking to fleets. So along with key benefits on the right that could be added if we have a little bit more room for messaging. So I'll read what those are, but if you could let us know, do you have any preferences for which one might be best to work with? What are some of the trigger words for this audience? What words maybe will we not want to use? And is there any different messaging that you think that we should be using here? So for fleets, spotlight your zero emission trucks, list your zero emission fleet, get noticed, get listed, help shippers, brokers, and BCOs hire your zero emission trucks, and your zero emission fleet ready for dispatch, get seen by entities hiring. So I'll just leave that up for just a minute. We also have a supporting message here. Join Clean Fleet Connect, get listed, get noticed, get hired. Okay. And then we'll move on to the next slide. For hiring entities. So this is the primary messaging that we have come up with for hiring entities, and key benefits as well. Again, any preferences here, any trigger words that are most motivating to this audience that maybe we're not using. And we're also thinking about how the WHERE program and motivators there might work into this messaging. So if you have any ideas we believe that this is a helpful tool for warehouse owners who may be looking to have more zero emission truck visits to their warehouses to earn WHERE points. So if you have any ideas for messaging there, that would also be really helpful. So I'll read them. Find zero emission fleets for hire fast. Find drivers with zero emission trucks, cut emissions, cut your freight emissions with zero emission fleets, hire zero emission fleets, power your climate reporting, and deliver on sustainability, hire zero emission fleets. And then we can move to the next slide and we can come back if anybody has questions. So for this one, these were our general messaging ideas if we were speaking to both hiring entities and fleets. The message that has really risen to the top is the third one, but we, like your feedback on all of them. So I'll read it: linking shippers, brokers, and BCOs with zero emission fleets. So again, any thoughts? Are we hitting the mark there? Are we clear about what this tool is? And is it motivating? So I'll just leave it open for anyone to provide feedback in the chat or raise your hand, talk through some ideas. Just looking through the chat while you all are thinking. And then again, feel free to reach out to us at the email that Andrea shared before. Any thoughts that you have is always really helpful, and we'll be working over the next couple months leading up to the launch of the tool on this, tinkering with it as well. So let's see, I believe we've got some ideas in the chat. So number 3 is good on this from Sean. There's a comment. I liked most of them except the one that starts with get listed. Usually a driver truck company doesn't want to get listed by government. Okay, that's good feedback. Okay. Comments coming in.
I see we've had a couple of Q&As come in to Melissa that kind of touch on this. A call in Lay suggesting why not focus messaging away from green sustainable emission cuts and focus more on the economics and TCOs of ZEVs at costing less than ICE to run. So thanks for the feedback on that, Colin. I think a lot of where we had been focusing in on kind of the green and sustainable and emission cuts was more trying to have folks who may be actually hiring those fleets weigh in, so they may not, or trying to encourage them to use the tool. So I think there may be a little bit less on the total cost of ownership benefits for them, but that's definitely something we can kind of look at. And Lynette had said if we want to get more small fleets engaged, maybe some more language around getting noticed by potential customers, as they may not be as interested in being noticed by shippers, brokers, etc. So there are some homeowners and businesses looking to hire businesses with ZEV fleets, and their current messaging makes it only appear it's only for big fleets or shippers.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, I don't see any other feedback coming in. Oh, it looks like the hand raise chat is disabled. Oh, so for the panelists, they can raise their hand and speak, I believe, but the chat feature should be enabled for everyone.
For attendees, they're able to submit comments through the Q&A feature, not the chat feature. So attendees, please feel free to do so.
Okay. Great. Don't see anything else coming in. Andrea, am I missing anything? You see anything else?
Nope, haven't seen anything new come in yet.
Okay.
We just have one from Matt. Has anyone spoken to any shoppers or 3PLs regarding what they are looking for?
We have spoken more broadly to, we've talked with the ports. We have had some individual meetings on the program level, mostly Andrea and Karina, to talk about the tool and find out what their input is on it. But specific to messaging, we've mostly been getting that through the ports. So hoping, if you have thoughts here, please share.
Yeah, I think we're more than happy if folks have recommendations of others or contacts that you think may be good for us to reach out to. We'd be happy to do that. I think we're really interested in trying to talk to a wide breadth of different people and organizations, because we do want to make sure that this tool is useful for fleets, but also kind of those shippers and other businesses that we think might be using this tool.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa and Andrea. I don't see any additional comments coming in now. Before we wrap up, though, I did want to address a few questions that came up through the Q&A. Sarah Deslauriers asked about any upcoming rule provisions meeting regarding ACF. We're expecting to have those later in the year, possibly summer, but later depending on how the amendments process plays out right now. There was a question from William Mancia regarding funding for zero emission vehicles. Our California HVIP program is currently open right now. I can drop a link in the chat for that as well. And then there was another comment from Caroline Delcor asking about sending comments in. We do have an email address, driveforward@arb.ca.gov, where we're, of course, taking in emails from anybody that has ideas or suggestions or wants to send any information to us. That's a great place to start. So there's just a couple minutes left. Are there any closing thoughts before we sign off for the day? Okay, then I just want to give a big thank you to the panelists and everyone that participated. I think we got a lot of good information that we can build off of, and looking forward to the next meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.